Okay, so today we're going to be using functions to solve equations. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at two related situations and comparing them. Okay, and so we're going to be comparing when are those two situations, which one would be better to use. For example, say we're comparing the rate on two plumbers, or we're comparing the rate of purchasing things at two different stores, which would be cheaper, which would be more expensive, when is it equal or going to even out, okay? When is it more beneficial to use one over the other, okay? So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at these two situations, okay? So here's the first situation. Do you guys all know what a locksmith is? What does a locksmith do? You guys know? So I'll give you an example of when I had to use a locksmith before. I went to Magic Mountain, and the person that I was with had the keys to the car in his pocket. And what do you think happened to the keys as soon as we went upside down in the roller coaster? They fell out and they got lost. So how are we supposed to get home with no car keys, right? So the locksmith, yeah, Uber. They didn't have Uber back then. That's how old I am, okay? So, yeah, Uber literally did not exist back then. So, yeah, so we had to call a locksmith, and the locksmith had to come, and they had to make a new key for the car. So we were in the parking lot for 2 hours after Magic Mountain was closed, because we had to wait for the locksmith, and then also the locksmith had to make a key for us when he got there. So it was really fun waiting all that time just to go home. But that's what a locksmith does, okay? All right, so we have this situation about two different locksmiths, okay? We've got locksmith Larry and locksmith Barry. Okay, so locksmith Larry charges $90 for a house call plus $20 per hour, okay? Locksmith Barry charges $50 for a house call plus $30 per hour, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write a function for each situation. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to write a function for each situation that we have. And so I'm going to represent my first situation with f of x. So for Larry, okay, the amount that Larry's charging, I'm going to let that amount be f of x, the total charge. So how much is his total charge? Well, it's how much? 90 plus how much more? 20 per hour, right? So 20x, okay? All right, so now that's his rate. His total rate is the $90 to come out plus the $20 per hour that he's there, okay? Now, for locksmith Barry, all right, we're going to use g of x instead of f of x just to show that it's a different function, but it's a function for him, okay? So to differentiate that these are two different functions, we're using g of x instead, okay? But it really just means the same thing. Both of these really mean y. Does that make sense? They can be replaced by y. They're represented on the y-axis if we were to graph them, okay? So let's take a look at his situation. His was how much? 50 plus how much per hour?
30.
It's 30 per hour, right? Okay, so we have our two situations. What you guys are going to be doing tonight on the homework is you're going to be using a table to compare the two situations. So we're going to make a table to compare the two situations. Okay, so when we make our table, for this situation, our first column is going to be the number of hours, right? because the charge that they're charging is going to depend on the number of hours. Okay? Now, the next two columns are going to be Larry's charge, f of x, right? And then Barry's charge, which is g of x. So I'm going to be finding for all the different hours how much each of them are charging. Okay? Now, in this particular situation, does it make sense? Like, does it make sense that they're going to come out for 0 hours? I mean, I could write 0 as my starting point, but like, am I going to pay this guy $90 to come out and then like not have him work? Like, here you go, here's $90, turn around, go home. Like, that's dumb, right? So what's like my minimum number of hours I'm going to have to end up paying for? Probably 1, right? So I'm going to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let's kind of see what happens there. Okay? All right, so for the first situation, for Larry, okay, how much does it cost for him to come out for 1 hour? Well, it's 90 plus $20 for the hour, right? So what's 90 plus 20? 110, right? Okay, now what about for 2 hours? 90 plus 20 times 2. Well, what's 20 times 2? 40, so what's 90 plus 40? 130. Okay, and then for 3 hours, well, how much is that going to be? It will be 90 plus 60, right? So that would give us what? Now, are you guys starting to see the pattern, what this is going increasing by each time? 20, right? So what could I expect the next number to be? 170 and the next one? And then the last one? 210, right? Okay. All right. So from here, I'm going to now that I have Larry's situation done, I'm going to go and do Barry's, figure out all his charges, right? So for Barry to come out for 1 hour, it'd be 50 plus 30, right? So 50 plus 30 is what? 80. And for 2 hours, it'd be 50 plus, well, 30 times 2 is 60. So 50 plus 60, 110, right? And then for 3 hours, 50 plus 90 would make 140. Now, are you guys seeing the pattern, what this one is increasing by each time? Yeah, this one's increasing by 30. So what could I expect the next number to be? 170, and then after that, 200, and then last, 230. Okay? Now, what I want you guys to notice in the table is there some point where the charges end up being equal? Where they have the same number? What point is that? At what number of hours? 4, okay? So what we see here is that 4 hours, their rate is the same, okay? So, like on your homework tonight, they might have you make an equation, do a table, and then they might ask you some questions. For example, one of the questions might be, when do they charge the same amount? Yeah, 4 hours, right? So the answer to that would be where we compare 4 hours, right? Now, another question they might ask might be something like, if you get, I don't know, 3 hours of work done, which locksmith should you hire? Okay, so if you're only getting 3 hours of work done, which guy are you going to hire? Larry or Barry? Larry or Barry? Barry. Why? Yeah, he's more cost effective, right? So we would probably hire Barry because he's cheaper, right? He's less expensive. Now, you don't have to write down this question, but what if you were getting 6 hours of work done? Who would you choose, Larry or Barry? Larry, right? Because Larry's more cost effective in that situation. Okay? So does that kind of make sense how we can use our table that we create to make some comparisons and then answer some questions about the situation? Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Okay, I have one other situation that I want to, and one more example that I want to do. Do you guys need more time writing any of this down? Yeah? Okay. All right, so here's your next set of situations we're going to compare. Okay, can you guys see it? Okay, let me move it. Oops. Okay. So, first situation. Happy Puppy Dog Walking charges $15 per day plus $4 per hour. Okay, so for the dogs that they walk, the dog owner is going to pay $15 for them to come out, right? Plus $4 for each hour their dog is getting walked. Does that make sense? Okay, then we have this other company, Lucky Dog Walking Company. They charge $25 per day plus $2 per hour. Okay, so we want to compare these two companies, kind of take a look at their rates, see when they're the same, who's cheaper at what times. That would help us make a decision on what we would do, right? So let's first write an equation for each situation. Okay, so we're going to write a function for each one. Okay, so for Happy Puppy. Happy Puppy. Okay, what would my equation be for Happy Puppy? Yeah, plus $4 per hour, right? So 15 for them to come out, and then $4 for each hour they're there, right? Okay, so 4 times x, x is the number of hours. Okay, now what about for Lucky Dog? Well, the initial cost is what? 25. Yeah, plus 2x. Good. Okay. All right. So we've got our two different companies here. Let's make a table to help us to compare them. Okay. So our table we're going to set up. Now, depending on the situation, I might start out my table with 0, but is this a situation where I'm going to pay for 0 hours of dog walking? No, I'm not going to pay someone to come out to my house and turn around and go home and not walk my dog, right? That would be silly, okay? So for this situation, I'm probably going to start with 1 and take a look at what's happening there, okay? Now, on the homework tonight, okay, you want to think about the situation and think about if 0 is reasonable or not. If 0 is reasonable, you could start with 0, but if it's not reasonable, I would just start with 1, okay? And then you might want to go like to 5 or 6 or maybe 7 to kind of get an idea of when they're going to meet, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look here. So for this one, for Happy Puppy, it's 15 plus 4 for the first hour, so that would be, what is that, 19? Okay, and then 15 plus 8 for the second hour, because 2 times 4 is 8. So 15 plus 8 would be 23. And then 3 times 4 would be 12, so 15 plus 12 would be what, 27? Now, are you guys seeing the pattern here? What's it going up by each time? 4. So what could I expect this one to be? 31, and then the next one? 35, and the next one? 39, and then the next one? 43, right? I can keep adding 4 once I recognize that pattern. My slope also tells me how much it's going to be increasing by each time. Each hour it's going to be increasing by $4, right? So that's why it's going up by 4 each time. The slope tells me that as well. Okay? All right. So next, let's go ahead and take a look at, for Lucky Dog, the first hour is going to be 25 plus 2, so that's 27. The second hour is 25 plus 2 times 2, so that's 25 plus 4, so that's 29. Okay, and then how much is this going up by each time? By 2, right? I can tell that from the slope, that it's increasing by 2. So 27, 29, 31, what's the next one going to be? 33, 35, 37, 39, okay? All right, so let's take a look at where they're equal. So when do the 2 dog walkers charge the same amount? Okay. Okay, so the answer to that would be 5 hours. Okay. Now, which dog walker would you guys use if you were only going to pay for 2 hours of dog walking? So if you were going to pay for 2 hours, who would you use? Would you use Happy Puppy or would you use Lucky Dog? Okay, so for 2 hours, I see that this one's much cheaper, right? So this one is f of x. F of x was what? Which one? Happy Puppy, right? Does that make sense? Yay, Happy Puppy. Okay. All right. So we're going to use the table to answer any questions that they've written about the situation. Okay. Does this make sense what you guys are doing on your homework tonight? Yes. Okay.